So I want to sort through this and tell you what I'm sort of thinking. I suspect that you won't agree with everything I have to say. That's okay. It'd be weird if you agreed with me all the time. I barely agree with myself all the time. But we're all in a position where we have to pick our way through the weeds, through the misinformation, obfuscation, fake news, out of context news, all of that. As we discussed yesterday, there's a crisis of trust in this country. Ultimately, one way or another, we get much of our information about world events and political events and the election through the media. But we can't trust the media. We can't trust most politicians, government officials. So it makes it very hard to know what's real and what isn't. It requires a lot of discernment on our part, a lot of clear thinking, a lot of intellectual honesty. And that's how I'm trying to approach this. And I think how we should all try to approach it. Now, President Trump gave a press conference last night. The media went ballistic over it, calling it an attack on our democracy, the worst thing Trump has ever done since the last worst thing he's ever done. Here's how that press conference began. Listen.
Good evening. I'd like to provide the American people with an update on our efforts to protect the integrity of our very important 2020 election. If you count the legal votes, I easily win. If you count the illegal votes, they can try to steal the election from us. If you count the votes that came in late, we're looking at them very strongly, but a lot of votes came in late.
As I said, the media reacted to that, the whole thing, the whole press conference, with typical dramatic flair. Here, for just one example, this is Anderson Cooper, alleged news anchor, offering his quite objective analysis of what Trump had to say.
We have never seen really, other than, well, I don't think we've ever seen anything like this from a president of the United States. And I think, as Jake said, it's sad and it is truly pathetic. And of course it is dangerous. And of course it will go to courts. But you'll notice the president did not have any evidence presented at all. Nothing. No real actual evidence of any kind of fraud. He talked about people putting up papers in windows. He talked about things that he'd seen on the internet. That is the president of the United States. That is the most powerful person in the world. And we see him like an obese turtle on his back, flailing in the hot sun, realizing his time is over. But he just hasn't accepted it, and he wants to take everybody down with him, including this country.
An obese turtle. I bet he was proud of that line. Hilarious stuff. Nice job, Anderson. You know, I could say that you look like a cartoon seagull. If I wanted to stoop to your level, I would say that, but I don't want to stoop to your level, so I'm not going to say that. And anyway, however you feel about Trump's rhetoric, his in his response, his fraud claims, all of that, even if you think it's reckless and dangerous and whatever else, you absolutely have no standing at all to condemn Trump, much less get all high and mighty about it if you're a Democrat, because Democrats for 4 years accused Trump of being an illegitimate president. They said it multiple times, many times, over and over and over again, relentlessly. They accused him of conspiring with Russia to steal our election. Was there any evidence of that? No, none. The most they could do is tell us that Russia was trolling on Facebook and posting memes. That's the most evidence we ever were given. And this was called rigging the election. They said that Trump and Russia conspired to rig the election. They then went on to claim that Trump's Supreme Court justices were illegitimate. They've been saying that about Amy Coney Barrett. After all of that, you are in simply no position to call Trump a turtle flailing at the sun, unless you want to call yourself the same. Besides, anyway, the only turtle in politics is Mitch McConnell, and he's more of a ninja turtle. The guy's a killer. He just doesn't lose, Mitch McConnell. By the way, Hillary Clinton in particular has been on TV for the past 4 years calling Trump an illegitimate president. Those words exactly. Here she is in 2019, 3 years after the election, still calling Trump an illegitimate president. Listen.
I believe he knows he's an illegitimate president. He knows that there were a bunch of different reasons why the election turned out the way it did. And I take responsibility for those parts of it that I should. But Jane, it was like applying for a job and getting 66 million letters of recommendation and losing to a corrupt human tornado. And so I know that he knows that this wasn't on the level. I don't know that we'll ever know everything that happened, but clearly we know a lot and are learning more every day, and history will probably sort it all out. So of course he's obsessed with me.
And okay, now Trump is going to say the same thing about Biden. And we're going to have to listen to the people who cheered Hillary Clinton react with feigned shock and horror when Trump says the same thing Hillary Clinton said. Speaking of which, here's something I'm wondering. I wonder, throughout the past 4 years of leftists calling Trump illegitimate, calling his Supreme Court picks illegitimate, advancing baseless claims of stolen elections and election rigging and voter suppression, has any leftist at any point anywhere ever been flagged, censored, or suspended by Twitter, Facebook, any other big tech company? Has there been even one example, one among the millions of cases of this? Have any of them been punished by Twitter, Facebook, any of the rest? No, of course not. Meanwhile, nearly everything Trump is currently tweeting is censored by Twitter. It's completely absurd, dishonest, double standards. It's wrong, period, obviously.